Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Samach Hey in K'tubos, as we learned for four Shlem for Yosef Israel ben Chaim Michal and Elazar ben Reuma. The last line on Samach on the base, it said as follows: that among the things that a person has to provide for his wife, especially if he is away out of town, he's not living with her all the time, or he's providing for her in a separate locality. So he has to provide all the things we mentioned yesterday, enough food and clothing, and her allowance, all the things that she needs have to be provided for her. We'll see this is also true after he dies, that the Yorshim, his heirs also have to provide this for her as long as she doesn't get remarried and she still lives in their house. So it says in the Mishnah, you give her besides bread, either wheat or barley. We discussed that in detail yesterday. You also give her legumes and fruits, vegetables, whatever she needs. So the last line of the page is Ilu Yain looked and doesn't mention about wine. You don't give wine to a woman. Of course, this is going to be qualified in a few minutes. It all depends on the situation. It doesn't mean women can't drink wine today, but in general, they said don't give wine to women. Bim Tomar, because it can lead to frivolity and it could lead to improper behavior. Zim Tomar, the pasuk says that your mother, your mother will be like a zona, and she'll say, Elcha Achre Mabe, I'll go after my lovers. No sin lachmi, Meimai, the ones who give my bread and drink, my water, Simru Fishti, my wool and my flax, Shmeni, my oil, Vishikuyai, and my drink. And presumably, like I said, they didn't have Diet Coke in those days. Presumably, the drink is the wine. That doesn't mean wine. Varm Sheishim Shtotekas Aleim. It doesn't mean shukah. It does not mean literally like you think that it means like mashke from a liquid, a drink, but rather it means things that a woman desires. And a woman wants jewelry and perfumes, things of that sort. So women, basically at this point we said, you don't allocate wine to women. Now we'll get into all the variations of that. That's not always true. Pardon? Men is no problem, right? Only when limit. This man, Rav Yehuda, said either from Nevaria or he was from Kfar Nefor Chayil. How do we know that we don't assign wine to a woman? And again, we'll see this means a woman who's alone, not with her husband. Shinam Pasuk says, Chana got up after she ate, after she ate. Bachrei shaso, and after he drank, shaso v'lo shasis, shasas, he drank and she didn't drink. So you see over here, even though they apparently ate together, but he drank, she didn't drink. So the Gemara says, well, what do you mean by that? Just because it said he drank doesn't mean she drank. It says after she ate. Does that also mean she ate and he didn't eat? She ate and he drank. Is that what you're saying? Below achal achanami. Is that what you're saying? It says no. Anan midashani kavdir. They're right. In general, it could be speaking about they don't always say he and she. After he drank and she. After he ate and he drank could also mean her too. But over here, the pasuk changed the lashon. Midashani kavdir. First, the pasuk spoke the lashon of nekeva. Achla, she ate, and then it changed it to he drank. We're talking about since it changed the lashon from the Nekeva to Zachar. We're talking about her. The pasuk is speaking about her, dealing with her. My time is shani. Why did it change and say when it comes to drinking, we changed from her to him? Shmami no shasa v'lo shasa. Tell you that it's after he drank, she didn't drink. So here's the source from according to this Rav Yehuda for women not drinking wine. Even though at this point they were probably together, they were husband and wife together. Now we'll talk about this may state. If she normally drinks wine, That's it. They drink wine with the meal. Then you give it to her. You give her wine. That's what the price says. You give her wine. If she normally drinks wine, you give it to her. So you see over here that you could give a woman wine. Why do you say you have sources? The sources weren't 100%, but the source seems to be from Chana that you don't give a woman wine. No, that's different because she's used to it. Regila shiny. If she's used to it, that's different. Since it's not something new for her, she's used to it already. It's not going to turn her heart to do something improper. Regila nosenla kosechet. If she normally drinks wine, you give her a cup. She'ena regila. If she's doesn't normally drink wine, nosenla shekas, you give her 2 cups. What do you mean? That's just the opposite. Why would you give her more if she doesn't drink? Mike, what do you mean by that? That can't be the explanation. That can't be written correctly. This is what it means to say. If she normally drinks with her husband 2 cups a day, she has 2 cups of wine. So when she's not with her husband, no. And when her husband's there, things are under more control. You don't want to put her out of control and get her drunk when her husband's not there. So if she normally drinks 2 cups with her husband, when she's seated with her husband, then when she's not with her husband, you can give her 1 cup. So if she only drinks 1 cup with her husband, then you don't give her at all, because we're afraid it'll lead to impropriety. Or I could say, Regila Nostin-law, if she's normally drinks wine, even her husband's not there, no small there, you can give her wine for cooking. Many people, we have a lot of chefs here, right here, we have chefs right here. So a lot of people use wine in their cooking when they're preparing the meat. They use that in meat, right? So there was a story with Nakdim, and the was a very wealthy man, we know, and his daughter-in-law was widowed. And she asked for an assignment of food, etc. They gave her quite a bit of wine, 2 saw of wine, but there for her cooking. Each week she was assigned that amount of wine just for cooking. She used to cook with it. Amr Lahen, she was so grateful to them for giving her this amount, which was much more than a regular woman would get. A regular widow wouldn't get this much. She was very grateful. So she said, and if your daughters need it, you should also, your daughter should also get this amount, this allocation of wine if they need it. Tana, we learn of Raisa that the story was Shemeres Yav Maisa. She was a Shemeres Yav. Like I said, if her husband had died, no children, and she was waiting for Yibam, below Onu Achareh Amen. They didn't say Amen. They didn't say Amen after her bracha. She gave them a blessing. If your daughters need it, I hope they need it too. They didn't say Amen because they didn't want their daughters to become Shemeres Yavos. They didn't want their daughters to become Almanas. So they didn't say Amen. You got to be careful what you say Amen to, right? You got to be careful what you say Amen to, All right, Tana, Kos Echad Yafa Leisha. 1 cup is good. 1 cup of wine is good. Shnayim Nibble. 2 is already a little bit disgraceful. 2 is getting too much. Slosha Tavest. If you give her 3 cups of wine, she'll solicit men openly. Arba, if you give her 4 cups, she'll even run after a donkey. She'll be so aroused. The Aina Makpedes, she doesn't even care. She's not particular. She'll take any male being, even if it's not a human. Now, that's the way of saying, again, obviously it depends on the situation, depends what they're used to, times are different, etc., what norms are. But that was the idea, that you have to be careful with wine, right? Even the pasuk, because the Kohen can't come into the base and make this drunk, right? On punishment of death. And many psukim in Tanakh about how wine can cause improper behavior. Amarabba, lo shalom shein ba'al.
The structure here was post-school common. There was a
when she went for an allocation. Yeah, in other words, if the children, let's say there was an issue, right? How much is she entitled to? So you have to, as we'll see, you have to feed her according to what she's accustomed to. So if there is some issue, then they would go to the bezdin. Correct. So that's not for husbands out there. But if her husband's there, there's no concern because he keeps her under control. What do you mean? What was the story with Chana? Her husband was there, and yet we seem to indicate from there that she didn't drink, only the husband drank. The answer is Achsanai. It's different when you're a guest. When you're on the road, you have to act differently. You got to be very careful. How do you know that you're a guest in somebody's house? You shouldn't cohabit with your wife. They got up in the morning, the same parsha of Chana. They got up in the morning, and they bowed down before God. When they returned, and they came home, to Ramot over here, right above Ramot. Came back to Ramasa. Vayeda Elkanah as Chana Ishto. And then Elkanah cohabited with his wife. And what do you see from her? Hashem remembered her. Hashta'emi Karlo. Now, after they returned home, then Vayeda Elkanah as Chana Ishto. But he didn't do it while he was on the road. When you're on the road, you got to be careful, sneeze, etc. And the same thing with drinking. That a person, when they're home, it's one thing. But when outside of a house, you got to be more careful, even when she's with her husband. Chuma the Vesed Abaye, here's on the side is Choma, whatever her name was. We'll see this woman Abaya was her 3rd husband, as we'll see in a few minutes. Abaya was her third husband. The other ones had died, and Abaya also had died. And now she was looking for an allocation of, food. So us came to Rava, and apparently the children, whatever, there was some issue there. Like you say, everyone says, well, isn't she entitled to one? Yeah, she's entitled to all those things, but sometimes there's a dispute as to what you need a court to decide how much. So us came for Rava. Amarle, Pasuk Limzon, please allocate for me proper food. Pasuk, she says, okay, fine. The children have to give this much money from the ksuba, and it's from the Yerusha, which the ksuba is the Yerusha's mortgage to the ksuba to pay her off, and part of the term of the ksuba is that if you stay at home until you get remarried, you're entitled to support. So they signed her. So Rava signed her food. So what about wine? Amalei. So Rava says, what? Yadana Beib and Achmani. I knew your husband Abaya. He's called Nachmani, right? He's called Nachmani. He was brought up by Nachman. So I knew that he didn't drink wine. He wasn't a wine drinker. Why do you want wine all of a sudden now? It's not like you could say, give me what I'm accustomed to. You didn't drink wine. Amalei, what do you mean? Chaydamar? I by your life. Davi Mashkele, he used to give me drink b'shufrisi. Shufrisi is like the word shofar. And she showed like a long horn. He used to give me a wine from a long horn, meaning from a large dosage of wine, ki high, like this. And she was showing it with her arm. And to show like it was this big. While she was showing him the size of the horn that she drank the wine from, Igli Dara, her arm was exposed. Her arm became exposed. They used to go sneeze stick in those days, right? Her arm was exposed. And a light, she was such a beautiful woman that her arm like caused the light to shine in the bezdin. I guess a reflection or something, but it shone off her flesh. After the court, it doesn't tell us how apparently he gave her the wine. He signed for the wine. Come Rava. Rava got up from there. He went home to his house. Tava the Bas Rav Chisda, and he solicited his wife now. So see what happened over here. He solicited his wife. Amrullah Bas Rav Chisda, so his wife, the daughter of Chisda, said to him, what happened all of a sudden? Like you're all excited, What happened? Who was in the court just now? Can you tell me who was in court right now that you come rushing home? Amrullah Chuma the Bissa the Abaya. Chuma, the wife or the almana of Abaya. She got so angry. Rava's wife got so angry that this Chuma apparently had exposed herself, even inadvertently, but she had exposed herself. Nafka Basa, she ran after Machsala, she beat her, but Kopi Deshada with the lock of a chest. She took a lock of a chest, so she chased her out of town. Screaming at her, Amala, so you've already killed 3 husbands, and now you want to kill another one. You're trying to seduce another man, like so to speak, her husband or other people. This is human nature, boy. It's in the chamber, right? Okay, so that's the story that happened. Okay, so again, I guess she was accustomed to drinking wine. Anyway, that's what he thought. To Rav Yosef, to Rav Rava, the wife of Rav Yosef, the son of Rava. Rav Yosef, the son of it's a different Yosef apparently than the Yosef that she came to be judged in front of. So the wife of Rav Yosef, Breda Rava, also came to Rav Nachman, Breda Rav Yosef, came before Rav Nechemia, the son of Rav Yosef. It's probably a different Rav Yosef because otherwise it's basically she's coming to her nephew or whatever to be judged. Must be different. So Amalei, she said, please allocate to me, assign for me food. Pasikla. Want wine too? Please allocate for me wine. Pasikla. Right? He assessed for her how much wine she should get. Amrullah, he told the Adana, I know, even though in other locales it was frowned upon giving wine to women, but I know there it's normal to drink wine, so you're entitled. So you see that the rules are very fuzzy, and it depends on the situation, depends on the locality, depends if her husband's there, etc. And in these cases, we're talking about where the husband was no longer there, the husband was gone. Another story, the wife of Yosef is different of Yosef, the son of Rav Nasha from Vil, also came to Rav Yosef, also informed by let's make the same judge of Yosef, but the litigant or the person who came to apply for more money was a different wife of a different Yosef. Amalei, some soakings on it. Please assign for me food. Pasukla, Soki Chamra, Pasukla. He gave her wine too. Soki Shura. What about silks? I need nice clothing. Amrullah, Shurah Lama, why do you need fancy clothing? What do you need fancy clothing for? You're on Almana now. Amrullah, she said, L'cha, for you, because I need to stay in the same class of that I was accustomed to, in the same manner of dress, out of respect for my husband. You have an old Rebbetzin, the husband died, etc. She still has to maintain her status out of respect for her husband. For you, Ulachabercha, and your friends, Ulachaberucha, and all your associates. Rashi says over here, Shalom Tizbaz Alabrius, she shouldn't be embarrassed and shamed, Mikvodi Arishan, from her original honor. In other words, it's also, in other words, original honor should be maintained. It's also honor for her deceased husband. The notion mata. So the Mishnah said you give her amita, you give her a bed, and you give her a mat, a mattress, and mat. So mapitz and machzeles lamala. Why do you say she needs both a mattress and a mat? What is all necessary for? In other words, in a normal bed, they had a lining on the bed of a nice hide, so she could sleep on that. Why was it necessary to sleep like with these hard mattresses and mats? The answer is that normally in that city, in that locale, the bed was made out of strings, rough ropes, the Mavagar law that can make her age. That's what it means, like lashon of bagrus. Rashi says that they would Mavagar law, Metzari law, that would cause her to suffer, and it would make her age. So you give her these things. They're talking about a city where the bed should be a soft bed. Basically, it's not maybe as soft as we'll see about cushions and soft things like soft flax or whatever. But the mattress and the reed that you're giving her are better. The mattress and the mat that you're giving her are better than ropes. Ain't no carpenters. You don't give her a pillow and a cushion. He says you do give her a pillow and a cushion. Our mission didn't mention pillows and cushions. What's the circumstances? Either orcha, if her custom is to sleep with pillows and cushions, he should supply that to her. That's her normal way, even if he doesn't normally like that. But if she's used to it, it's her family's minhag is to sleep with pillows and cushions. So give it to her. Either orcha, my Tanakam, what's the reason for the Tanakam says you don't give it to her. Either orcha, and if it's not her custom, my time Rav Nasser, why does Rav Nasser say you have to give her pillows and cushions? Let's read it. Going to urchei didei. It's his custom to sleep with pillows and cushions for urchei didei, but it's not her custom. Now we learned before that when it comes to she rises up with him. If he lives on a higher standard, she's entitled to that too. So when she's with him as husband and wife, she's entitled to the pillows and cushions too, even though her own family doesn't do that. So here's what happened. The husband normally does that. Normally sleeps with pillows and cushions. She doesn't. Tanakama figures, well, listen, it's not her custom, it's only his. So he could tell her, Amrali could tell her, Kiyasilna, when I'm not home, when I go away, Shakilna, I'm taking the pillows and cushions with me. You ever see people who travel, they take their own pillows with them? People do that. So I'll take the pillows with me. You don't need it when I'm not home because you're not living with me. When I'm not home and you're not used to it. When I come home, I'll bring him out there, I'll bring him with me and we'll sleep together on pillows and cushions. But Nasun's afraid, Amrali, she could tell him, maybe you'll come home right before Shabbos, and right before Shabbos you'll show up and you won't be able to carry them. You came home, you made it to town right when Shabbos started, and you had to walk the rest of the way not carrying anything. Won't be able to carry them home. Maybe I'll buy them. Maybe I'll buy my own in the interim. I'll have my own pillows and cushions or mats, whatever. You'll take mine, and I'll have to sleep on the floor even when you're home. So because of that, she can argue, you must supply me with pillows and cushions besides your own. But also, he gives her a cap or a hat, whatever, like a kippah. Now, it says over there, look at the Mishnah carefully. The Mishnah had said that, what does he supply her with? He supplies her with, a kippah, a hat, the roshav, a chagor lemasna, and a girdle, minalayim moed lemoed, and new shoes every yontif. Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos. The Kem Shchamishim Zuz Mishana Shana. But clothes worth 50 zuz. We'll see it's not exactly 50 zuz, but clothes once a year. Mishana Lashana. You said you want to give her new clothes in the winter so that they'll be nice and warm, and then when they wear out in the summer, they'll be okay for her then too. Clothes once a year, shoes 3 times a year. So Gemara says, as we turn the page, Hai Tana Shaliach Hatoi holds that you can strip her naked. take off all the clothes from Masana and wear shoes. Like, what's going on over here? She gets new shoes 3 times a year, but clothes only once a year. What is she supposed to do? Yantam wear new shoes and no clothes. What do you mean that? Well, like Tana Tana was speaking of a place where it was a mountainous area, which was rough on the shoes. It's impossible to live without 3 pairs of shoes, a year. So you give her. So if you give her 3 pairs of shoes, why do you give it to him for Yantiv? But might as well give it to her on Yantiv gift than have it simple like a bio. In other words, you need 3 pairs of shoes, whether it be Yantiv or no Yantiv. You need 3 pairs of shoes because the shoes wear out. The clothes don't wear out as much, but the shoes, it's a mountainous area, rocky. You need new shoes, and things weren't made with the same quality that they're made today. So same thing with the clothes. Obviously, clothes are worn out in the summer, so now they're worn out, and most of the clothes that we have today, you can wear from season to season. You can wear them 3 years later; they haven't worn out, but that's how it was in those days. So, the idea is that she needs new shoes. You give her what she needs. She needs new shoes. You might as well give it to her for Yantiv and make her happy. Clothes worth 50 zuz. What kind of zuz are we speaking about? Amar Abaya, chamishim zuz pshiti. We're talking about what they call zuze medina, not mezuzah, not regular zuzah. Meaning regular zuz is a dinner, right? The zuze medina that he talks about here, pshute, meaning simple ones. Zuze medina, which are an eighth of the value of a regular zuz. The regular zuz is what's called a zuz suri, a Tyrian zuz. That's worth 8 times more, as we've had before. A sella medina. Normally there's 4 zuz in a sella, 4 dinars in a sella, but a sella medina is a half a zuz because it's only worth an eighth of right. So if you have a regular sella is 4 zuz or 8 half zuzes, and a sella medina is only a half a zuz or an eighth of a regular sella. So we're talking about very, very cheap money here. We're talking about very cheap money, not good money at all. Chamishim zuz, if it's 1/8, it would be about 6 and change regular zuz. Chamishim zuz, pshite. How do we know we're talking about simple ones, not the regular zuz? And then the Mishnah says, when is all this? One of the allocations spoken about in the Mishnah, when do they apply? But on Yisrael, poor people. A person who's honorable, a person who's wealthy, it all depends on his honor. Like we said, Nakdiman's daughter deserved a lot more. It depends on you have to allow her to live in the manner, in the fashion that she's accustomed to. If you're talking about real 50 zuz, ani 50 zuz manali, where does an ani have 50 zuz? 50 zuz is a lot of money, and ani doesn't have that kind of money. We're talking about simple money. So we give her tanrabanim. Moser mazonos. We said you give her new ones in the winter or not in summer. Moser mazonos, the surplus mazonos. Let's say you assign her a certain amount of food, and that's too much for her. She doesn't eat all. She doesn't eat a lot. So that goes back to the husband. It's really the husband. The husband has to feed her, but whatever's left is his. Moser blows isha. So we said the surplus of the worn out clothing. What do we say? That you give her new ones in the winter, and the summer they'll be worn out, and she'll wear them then. What do you do with extra ones? What happens if then you give her new ones next season? What does she do with the old worn out ones? They go to the wife. Mostly isha alomla. What does she need? Worn out ones. She has new ones. She uses them when she's in nida. When she's in nida, she uses those because she uses the nicer clothes when she's not in nida to be close with her husband, to be intimate with her husband, and she wears the worn out ones when she's in nida. In other words, you don't want the husband to see her in the clothes that she's wearing when she's in nida. She doesn't want to be she doesn't want to wear those clothes when she wants to live as husband and wife with her husband because he's looking at her and he's looking at her as a nida. So and women like to have new clothes all the time. They don't like to wear the same thing every day like we do, right? So she shouldn't be shameful on her husband. She wants to look attractive to her husband. So you let her keep that change of clothes, so to speak. The old change of clothes she wears, she's in nida. So she wears nicer clothes, the good clothes when she's not nida. Rabbiah. Like we have a tradition that most of those almana liyarsha, the worn out clothes of an almana, she doesn't get to keep. They go to his yorshim because those clothes really belong to him as long as they're married. They're not married anymore. She's an almana. He died. They go to the yorshim. What's the difference? Why can't she keep them? Again, Hassam would go to Skani Bapei. Over there, when her husband's alive, we want her to keep those clothes to wear when she's in nida, so she can wear the new clothes when she's not in nida. But now that she's an almana, who does she have to look nice for? We don't want her to look nice for the yorshim. That's we don't want her to entice them. Chas v'chalila. We don't nobody for her to look nice to, and therefore we let the Yorshim keep them. No Slama Kesef, you give her an allowance of Ma Kesef, Mayochelis. So the Mishnah says you give her an allowance each week, etc. And then Mishnah went on to say for her needs, and then Mishnah say, but Friday night she should eat with her husband. It says Ochelis, but Ochelis, Shabbos. Each Friday night she eats with her husband. Mayochelis, what do we mean eating? Nachman says Ochelis Mam, she has the meal, she eats the Suda, Friday night Suda with her husband. Rashi Omer Tashmish, it means referring to cohabitation with or bia with her husband. Shnan, Ochelis Malala Shab, she eats with Shabbos. Bishlam Mandam Rachila. You say it's eating, that means Hanik Tani Ochelis, she eats. Elamandam Tashmish, Amai, here says Amai Nokat Ochas, why lashon of eating? So say some other lashon. Why you talk about eating? It's a nicer lashon. You don't want to refer to bia directly. Talking about a woman who's mizana, she eats and she wipes off her mouth. She doesn't mean literally her mouth. She means the mouth below the belt. And it means to say that she sinned and then wiped herself. And I haven't done any sin. So you see that sometimes ochla is a nicer way of referring to bia because you want to use a nice lashon and don't refer to it. It's proper to speak properly. Like the Gemara says we had before, and you almost said, everybody knows what a chassan and kala go to the chuppah for, what's going to happen afterwards. But if you talk about it, that's considered disgusting. Meisvei. Shimon Gamliel Omer, Ocheles B'Leil Shabbos b'Shabbos. Shimon Gamliel says she eats there Friday night and she has a meal on Shabbos. As we had before, we learned yesterday, a woman's supposed to have 3 meals too, according to Pikka, 4 meals. But you're also supposed to have the meals on Shabbos. So she eats with B'Leil Shabbos and on Shabbos. If you talk about eating, it makes sense. You have a meal Friday night, you have a meal during the day. Elamandam or Tashmish, if referring to cohabiting with his wife, Tashmish Shabbos Friday night, at night you have it. But during the day, do you have Amar Afuna Yisrael Kedoshim? The Jews are holy people, and they don't cohabit during the day. Amar we had this before many times. The base ofel mutar. In a dark room, in a dark house, it's permitted to have bia during the day too. So the lashon of ochelis can refer either to eating or to bia. If she was nursing, and the Mishnah said, if she nursed, you got to add on to that. Poskim says she has to do less work. We have said how much work she's supposed to do. It's because she's busy nursing and she's weakened and she's that takes up her time. She has less work, and you assign her more food. You add more food. Darish Ravula Rabba, the great Ravula, Apisr Messiah at the door of the prince's house. Apisha Amru, so we had before that you're not mechuyev to feed your children from the age of 6 until they're adults. Once they're adults, but it's certainly not. But even the age of 7, 8 years old, you're not mechuyev to. It's a mitzvah, but you're not mechuyev to. You don't have to feed them. But the small children do have to be fed. As we'll see, Ad come until what age? Ad bet shesh until 6. And this could even be a daraisa if you hold that it's you're mechuyev to feed your wife, because as we're going to explain now, feeding your children, your small children, goes under the category of feeding your wife. Your wife has to take care of the children. Ravasi, how do we know this from Ravasi's rule or Kid Ravasi's rule? Dam Ravasi, Cotton ben Sheish Yotze be'erev imo. You make an Erev out of town. We discussed this the other day. We discussed yesterday. We discussed it many times. You make an Erev out of town so you can carry in that direction, right? So you can walk in that direction, not carry. Carry you can't, but you can walk in that direction more than 2,000 amas out of town. So let's say the wife made an Erev in one direction, right? She made an Erev to the north of town, and the husband made an Erev to the south of town. The child, the small child under the age of 6, goes with the mother, right? So he's Yotze. He fulfills the obligation. In other words, he's supposed to Chanukah Kitch too. Also, she goes with his mother. What does that mean? Because he's dependent on his mother. So therefore, and he goes. So the Chacham said he goes together with the mother, since the child is dependent on him. Almas is Rashi, the last Rashi for at the end of the parak here in the middle of the page. Almas is Rashi. Ad sheish tzarich siyumi. He needs help from his mother. Just like a husband has to feed his wife, support his wife, he has to support the child with the wife because the child is under the mother's jurisdiction, under the mother's support. She has to take care of the child. The child goes with his mother. So just like you have to feed the mother, you have to feed the child. So this that we say that from the age of above, once he's reached the age of 6 until bar mitzvah, you're not really mechuyev to feed your child, although it's a mitzvah. That's only from 6 and above. Over once he's reached the age of 6, but under 6, You're mechuyev to feed the child because you have to feed the mother, and they go together. Midiktani, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know? Since you how do we know this is the halacha that he says even though you're not mechuyev to feed an older child but a younger child you have to, because the Mishnah says if she was nursing, she has to do less work. Almost Sifim said you have to give her more food. Who are you giving more food for? Not for her, you're giving more food for the child. You're giving her more food so that she can feed the child. My time, because the child has to eat with her. You have to give her food so that she should be able to produce more milk and he can eat. Maybe it's different. Maybe not because you have to feed the child, but really because you have to feed the mother. And now that she's nursing, she's like a sick person. Then say if she was sick, you got to give her more. Needs more energy. Right? What does it mean if she was nursing? It didn't say if she was sick. She was nursing. Nursing, she has to feed the child. So that shows you're to feed the child. It says, the stam is cholos. Maybe it just means this, that a stam woman who's nursing is considered a chola, right? Maybe that's what it's saying. That stam, not because of the child, but maybe because a woman who's nursing is considered a chola, and you have to give her more food for her, so you can't prove. So Gemara sort of questions Rav Asi's proof, or questions Rav Ula Rabba's proof. Rav Asi just said that a cotton Erev goes with the mother, but Rav Ula Rabba said that even though that you see from our Mishnah that you're mechuyev to feed a small child under the age of 6. Maybe it's no proof from there. Maybe Istam Menekes is a chola. Like they say in Yerushalayim, women don't fast on the small fasts, right? Why? What's the reason for that? In Yerushalayim, we used to fast, and everybody fasts in America, right here. Because they say a woman is either pregnant. When she's not pregnant, she must be sick. So therefore, she's not pregnant, she must be sick. So one or the other, she's parted from fasting. That's what they say here in Yerushalayim. Right. The Girsa here is Itmar. Mao Mosavo, what does he add on? When she's nursing, you give her wine. It's good for producing milk. You ever hear that one? Yeah, it's good to give her nursing money wine. Beer is good, yeah. And maybe gives her strength, but produces who knows. So here you see that this wine, it all depends, right? It all depends situation. Sometimes you should give her wine in order for her to produce milk. I don't know how Pete that ends this parak, and then we begin the 6th parak. Messias Isha. Now, we've really discussed this, most of the things in this Mishnah, or parts of the things in the Mishnah we discussed already, but we'll see why it's brought down. Messias Isha, if she finds something, her paycheck, we know Labala goes to her husband. The Yerushasa, and anything she inherits while she's married to him, she inherits some Yerusha fell to her, he's entitled to also, who also payers b'chayah. He's entitled to take the payers while she's alive. Rashi brings out another pshat. The Yerushasa means if she dies, he gets the Yerusha. But then the comma should be not after Ma'aseh Labala comma, but rather, and then there's a new thing, Yerushasa who also payers b'chayah, but rather it's like Messias Isha Ma'aseh Labala the Yerushasa. And if she dies, he inherits her. Then who also payers b'chayah is another thing. But the first pshat seems to make more sense. Boshno Pigma, no, Shalom. Let's say she was hurt. Now, if the rule is a chov v'chaber, if you hurt somebody, you hire 5 things. Nezek, sari, b'shevs, and bosh. We've discussed many times, right? Nezek, devaluation, pagam. Nezek and pagam is the same thing. Nezek, sar, pain, physical pain. Ripui, the doctor bills. Sheves, her how long she's absent from work, right? Uboshes and shame. So it's obvious, say the Meforshim, that the tsar, who's suffering the tsar? The pain, the physical pain that she's in pain because somebody beat her and she's suffering broken bones, etc. That's hers. She should get that. If she should get that, well, what about while she's married? So then, as we'll see, any money that she's supposed to get, you buy cargo with it, and it's kept, so to speak, as in trust for her until the marriage is over. If the husband dies or divorces her, she'll get it. That's the tsar. What about the other things?
How do you measure the tsar?
Okay, so that has to be appraised by a appraiser, by a court. What's pain? Yeah, what's pain? How much? Whatever the norm was. It was probably different today than it was then. But how much pain is assessed by the court. You have experts tell you what is that worth, what tsar is worth. We're talking about the physical pain. The physical pain goes to her. That's clear. So the Mishnah is going to talk about the boshes and the begam. Her devaluation and her shame. Right? Gam is the nezek. Tsar, we talked about The report in the Sheves, her doctor bills, who gets that? That's clear, it goes to the husband. He's mechuyev to heal her. He's mechuyev to, if she's sick, he has to take care of her. He has to buy the medicine, pay for the doctors, etc. So obviously, if now she needs doctors and stuff, and the person who hurt her has to pay, that goes to him because he has to pay for that. The same thing with her loss of work. Since her paycheck goes to him, so if she can't work now, he should get that money, right? So it's clear that the tsar goes to her. The ripui and the sheves goes to him. What about the boshes and the begam? What about the shame from the being hurt and damaged and you don't look so good now? And the begam, her devaluation, that she's worth less on the market, her, her possible earnings, they do that today too. What would be his possible earnings until age 67 or 70 or whatever they compute. So that's the begam. So who gets that? Bos begam, Tanakama says, shalom, goes to her. She's the one who's shamed. She's the one whose values is devalued. Rav Meir says, no, it depends. Bisman shebeseser, if it's a damage that you don't see, her face isn't all bruised. The damages are under the clothing, so to speak. You don't see them. So shnechem, she gets 2/3 below echad. He gets 1 share. You split it. You split it because right now she's being devalued, right? And the shame is his too, because he's suffering if his wife looks terribly and she looks injured and all that, and it's also she's not as desirable. There's something that Bosh said, Bosh Shalo, he's got to suffer from looking at a wife who's now crippled. So so that was the Tanakam. Tanakama says it's all hers. Rav Meir says no. If it's something that's hidden, she gets 2/3, he gets 1/3. This man Shebegolui, if it's something that everybody sees, then he's really embarrassed by that too. So Loshnev, he gets 2/3 and she gets 1 share. Now hers, Shalo, his share he gets right away. Why shouldn't he tell? As soon as it's assessed, his share is assessed, he gets it right away. According to Tanakama, she gets all that, but whatever he's supposed to get, that's assessed right away. According to Rav Yehuda, that he gets a share. Either he gets 1/3 or he gets 2/3. That's assessed and he gets it right away. Shalah, her share, you look at karka. What do you do with the money? You buy karkas. We'll see later. Any time when there's a concern that it's metaltal and it's cash and it might disappear and she might never see it, you always buy karka that will stand forever. And it's sort of like a trust. You buy it as a trust, so she'll always have that when the marriage is over. Of course, unless she dies first and then he inherits her, but it can still go to her ksubas min different. My Kamashma, what's the chiddush in this? Tanina, we already learned in this Masechet. We had it in other places. A father's entitled to his daughters to marry her off until the age of 12 and a half. He makes that decision. The kesef, the shtar rabia, he either gets the money, or if it's for mashtar, or he gives her over to whoever he wants to for bia. He's entitled to marry her off to who he pleases. Zakai b'mitziasa, he's entitled also to anything that she finds ma'aseh in her paycheck. He can break her nedarim up until the age of 12 and a half. Makabel skita, he also gets her get. He receives her get if she was divorced from Erison, not from the Suin. But if she was divorced from Erison, he gets the get. And he's not entitled to Paris. If she got some Yerusha on her mother's uncle or something, he died, and the husband's not entitled, he came down to her, she got the Yerusha, not her father, he can't eat Paris. Nissus, if she got married, yes, or the Baal is entitled to do all those things. Obviously not married, she's already married, but he's entitled to her paycheck and to her findings and to break her neder, etc. He's entitled to all those advantages. Yes, al-Baal, he gets even more, but he has an additional advantage. Shu Paris, he eats the Paris, he's entitled to Paris while she's alive without being responsible for the value of the land. It wasn't written into the Ksuba, but he's entitled to the Paris. So we've already learned this in Mishnah. What's the Mishnah teaching me? The answer is Boshis Hupgama Etzruchlei. Right. This part was just to tell us about Ma'aseh Dad, to tell us that those things we know go to the husband and he's entitled to this. But when it comes to the Boshim Gam, we have a machlokas. Boshim Gam Yitzruchalei Plukta Review B'Msei Rabbanan that we didn't know about. Again, obviously the tsar goes to her because that's her physical pain. What does he have to do with that, right? She suffered the pain from this person who hurt her, from the chovel. And the repo and the shevis clearly goes to the husband because he's responsible for those things. So he should get the money. But the Boshim Gam that Rav Yehuda argues, Rav Yehuda says no, it depends. It's 2/3 and 1/3 depending on if it's obvious, if it's seen by everybody or under the clothes. Versus the Chacham who say no, that she's entitled to the whole thing. That machlokas, that's the reason why the Mishnah was brought down here to see this machlokas. Tomorrow's daf will be on the podcast, and on Sunday, Meretz Hashem will start from the 5th line on Daf Samach Zayin. Sunday morning, the 5th line, cover the first 4 lines are covered on the podcast. We'll start with Tanya Amar Belazar B'Tzorach Tzadok on Sunday, the 5th line. Shabbat Shalom L'Kulam.
Shabbat Shalom. Good.